Welcome once again to Fundamentals of Public Policy and Analysis. In the preceding lecture, I discussed the three concepts efficiency, equity, and effectiveness, and also discuss about two welfare theorems and Pareto optimality, Sitowski double criteria, Hicks and Kaldor criteria, and at the end I discuss about the Arrow's impossibility theorem. Public policy is evaluated through three E's: equity, efficiency, and effectiveness, which helps policymaker assess fairness, resource use, and goal achievements. Equity focuses on fairness in the distribution of cost and benefits and includes horizontal, vertical, and intergenerational equity. Efficiency concerns achieving the maximum social benefit from the available resources at the lowest possible cost and is closely associated with Pareto efficiency. Effectiveness measures whether a policy achieves its intended objectives, goals, and produce the desired outcome in the society. In context of equity and efficiency, key theoretical foundation includes utilitarianism, Walrasian welfare theorem, and also Kaldor-Hicks criteria and Sitowski criteria and Arrow's axiom. In this lecture, I will discuss how to incorporate equity in public policy. Equity and social justice, particularly in the Indian context, will be discussed. Equity is not just a policy goal in India, it is a constitutional obligation to fix deep inequalities rooted in caste, gender, religion, and region. In fact, directive principle of state policies and provide a clear direction to the center and state government to formulate policies for ensuring the equity in all the welfare policies. Reservation opened door for SC, ST, OBC, yet there are huge disparities in healthcare as well as labor market. Women are underrepresented in decision making and also in the labor market. They suffer most from the policies that ignored gender realities in everyday life. So government spending favor urban areas, cities, corridors, infrastructure, education and health funding in urban area while rural area lag behind, which lead to distress migration and also agrarian distress and spatial inequality. Public distribution system, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, now Viksit Bharat VBG Ramji scheme, and housing program face exclusion errors, administrative biases, and low awareness, leaving vulnerable group far behind in the development process. So let us understand the evaluation of public policies in context of equity. The criteria of equity is closely related to legal and social rationality and refers to the distribution of effects among different groups in society. A given program might be effective, efficient, and adequate, yet it may still be rejected on the grounds that it will produce an inequitable distribution of cost and benefits. Equity is closely related to competing conceptions of justice or fairness and to ethical conflicts surrounding the appropriate basis for distributing the resources in the society. What makes one group happy might leave another group dissatisfied. So, measuring social welfare is not just about total, it is about balancing competing values fairly. So this is one of the important issues. When any policy is formulated and implemented, then in a society, some groups may get the benefit from the policy, some may be dissatisfied from the policy and may bear the loss. But here, when we talk about the social welfare, it is not the total sum of gain minus losses or net gain to the society. What matter is how to balance the competing values fairly in the society. Because when you talk about overall welfare gain or shifting the welfare function above due to intervention of policy, that tell us the aggregate welfare in the society increase, but aggregate may conceal many things. How much benefit is received by one group, how much is the loss to the another group, and therefore making a proper balancing of the interest of different stakeholders in the society becomes a very challenging task for policy making. It means that introducing equity aspect in the policy making is very very essential, and equity forces policymaker to ask not just does this work, but does this work for everyone fairly. So whether this policy will be effective is one aspect, whether this policy will be effective and useful for all member of the society is another important aspect as far as equity is concerned. Policy analysts face a core challenge: how to maximize societal welfare rather than just benefiting the specific individuals or groups, and this can be done by different ways. So let you know how to create benefit for all member of the societies. First point is maximize individual welfare. So maximize the welfare of all individuals simultaneously is one aspect, but according to arrow theorem, which proves it mathematically impossible even with two people and three choices. So I discussed in my earlier lecture, suppose if there are two persons and three outcome, then even in such situation it becomes impossible to prove mathematically that the societal welfare represent the individual welfare. So second is protect minimum welfare, increase the welfare of some person while still protecting the position of persons who are worse off, which is based on the Pareto criteria. So Pareto criteria clearly indicate that movement from one point to another point on the utility possibility frontier means someone gain and someone lose. So here, if policy is implemented in such a manner that overall gain in the society is shifted and redistribution, the equity principle is introduced so that the maximum benefit goes to the marginalized group is equally important. Then maximize net welfare. So follow the Caldor Hicks criteria to boost total benefits minus total cost, assuming winners could compensate losers, though they often don't, which sidestep equity concerns. So this Caldor Hicks criteria clearly states that when some policy interventions are made, some are the gainer, and if gainers compensate the loser, then loser will also be better off, while overall welfare function will be higher, or the those who are compensating is still gaining higher than the gain or the utility which they have before intervention. Maximize redistribution welfare, focusing on helping the worse off group like poor, oppressed, sick, and that can be done through redistribution policy. I discussed in my earlier lecture that there may be progressive taxation or subsidy. So through progressive taxation, redistribution can be done, and direct transfer to the poor people can help to redistribute the welfare in the society. How to incorporate efficiency in public policy? Efficiency is equally important because resources are limited. So public budgeting in India needs to improve the efficiency. Efficiency in budgeting focuses on maximizing value for money by ensuring that public resources produce the greatest possible outcome with minimum waste. In programs such as Prime Minister Gram Sadak Yojana, efficiency is assessed by examining whether roads are built at reasonable cost and whether public funds are used effectively. However, efficiency alone is insufficient as far as overall welfare of the society is concerned. Government roles in promoting efficiency is equally important through progressive and proportional taxes. The government mobilizes resources to finance public services and development activities. So government can impose progressive taxation and get additional funds, and these additional funds can be spent for the welfare of common masses while maintaining the efficiency in the delivery of public goods or public services or even economic goods in terms of infrastructure development. So, efficiency can be maintained while having a redistribution policy in terms of taxes. Although it is debatable issue, you can have different arguments here. When redistribution is made, certainly the income will come from the rich people through progressive taxation, and rich people saving potential may decline, and saving is one of the important indicator of economic development. So saving will badly affect the investment, and it will have adverse impact on economic growth of the economy. But this is one aspect. Another alternative aspect is when a progressive taxation is made, and the money received by the government through progressive taxation is utilized either for creating economic infrastructure or creating social infrastructure or providing direct transfer to the poor people in terms of direct cash transfer or subsidies, or improve indirectly on those goods and services which are consumed by the poor people. So due to this, the productivity of poor people will increase, their occupational mobility will increase, there will be intergenerational mobility of people from illiterate to more educated people, and in the long run it will have positive impact on widening the base of economy, and ultimately it will increase the overall economy, and consequently the capability of the government to mobilize more taxes will also increase. So it makes sense to follow the redistribution policy in order to ensure both equity as well as efficiency in the welfare function or public policy delivery. We can do this by different ways. One is Piguan tax or Piguan fees. Arthur Pigou was a famous economist, and he introduced this tax which is named from his name. It is charged on activity that harm others like pollution, where the damage is not included in the product prices. So what happens in the absence of effective regulation? Private players maximizes their return, and sometimes they ignore the social cost of the production. They release more emissions in the atmosphere, including solid, gaseous, or other form of waste into the atmosphere, and this imposes the huge social cost on the society in terms of pollution as well as the cost on maintaining health, etc. So this tax can be imposed. This tax raises the private cost by the amount of harm done. So the final price reflect the full cost of production. Or you can say it is a way of internalizing the externalities. Externality I already explained in my earlier lecture. So to internalize the externality, PGN fees can be imposed, and we can discuss it through the graph how this PGN fees or tax work in the society. In the presence of a negative externality, the market produces more than the socially optimum level of output. That is where the private cost is lesser than the social cost, and that lead to inefficient equilibrium in the economy. So given tax actually equal to the external cost, raises producer cost, reduces output, and move the market towards socially efficient equilibrium, where the private marginal cost is equal to social marginal cost, and that can be explained through this graph. We have the supply and demand, because we know the price of any product is determined by the interaction of supply and demand. Demand curve is represented by the private marginal benefit curve, and the supply curve is represented by private marginal cost curve. Equilibrium is achieved at this point, and here the producer is producing OQ1 amount of output and selling the output at OP1 prices. So this is the situation before taxes, and since it generate externality, so to internalize externality, PGN tax can be imposed in such a manner that entire externality is internalized, and due to this supply curve will shift upward, and new supply curve is at this point where the output is now OQ2 and price is OP2. So after internalizing the externality in the form of imposing tax, here price of the product increase, because now it covers not only the private cost but also the social cost, and due to increase in price, demand declines, so equilibrium level of output is also reduced, so from Q1 to Q2. So it indicates that if a government want to discourage the output of polluting industries, then PGN fees can be imposed in such a manner that entire cost should be recovered by the producers in the form of internalization of externalities. This is one way to address the equity, but there may be another way, and another way is that subsidies can be given to the marginalized groups, and when subsidy is given, the basic difference between subsidy is given to any consumer or producers, then subsidy encourages the output, while we can use the same graph here, demand and supply, and this is the price of the product before any change. So OQ is the output, and this is the supply curve, and that is the demand curve. Now equilibrium is at point E. Now if subsidy is given to the producer, what will happen? Then the supply curve will shift, and new supply curve will be like this, and that will increase the output and reduce the price. So we can also improve the welfare of the common masses by providing subsidy on inputs or subsidy directly to the consumer. But basic difference here is that when tax is imposed, then it actually provide fund to the governments, because tax is received by the government and which can be spent for the welfare of the people. But when subsidy is given out of the taxes or budgetary resources, and that reduces the amount of money that can be spent for the welfare of the people. And that's why sometimes it is called that a huge subsidy on food, water, fertilizer, and many other areas may crowd out the public investment in social sectors. So, therefore, while studying the equity aspect in public policy, all these aspects must be taken into consideration, and there should be a proper balance between the interest of different stakeholders. There is also a trade-off between equity and efficiency. The equity efficiency trade-off happens when actions that boost efficiency lead to reduce equity in the distribution of income and wealth. Economic efficiency seeks to maximize total social welfare by achieving the greatest benefit at the lowest possible cost. But while doing this, there is no guarantee that equity principle may be achieved when social welfare is maximized. So, equity concerns fairness, ensuring that economic benefits are distributed in the society in a just and inclusive manner. While there may be conflict among the policymakers while privatizing fairness, rights, social justice, while also emphasizing on optimum utilization of resources. So there may be some sort of trade off, and that trade off must be addressed while making the policy for the welfare of the society. We can explain this trade off by this graph. Here we have two persons, P and Q. So utility index of P person is measured on horizontal axis, and utility index of Q person is measured on vertical. We have societal indifference curve or social welfare function, IC1, IC2, IC3, IC4, IC5, and it clearly indicates higher the social welfare function, higher will be the utility or welfare of the society. And both equity and efficiency are fundamental goals of public policy, but because maximizing economic output and ensuring a fair distribution of benefit often conflicts, policymaker must carefully balance growth, fairness, and overall social welfare. So we can explain it here. Suppose we have an initial point T. So this is the point T where these two persons actually are getting utility like this. So PU is the utility of P person and QU is the utility of Q person. Now, if some interventions are made in terms of policy and that intervention benefit only to Q, and P is neither worse off nor better off, or P's utility remain constant, then economy will this the T point will move to S point. So at this S point here, this is called Pareto improvement, because here P is not worse off, but Q is better off due to policy interventions. But here, if you move from T to U, this say T to U, again this point. So if you move from T to U, again it is Pareto improvement, and in this case P is better off while Q is neither worse off nor better off. But if you compare S and U, then it makes difference. S provide more welfare than U. S is better than U because U is at IC2, or overall social welfare is higher at S point than U point, because U point is at IC2 while S point is at IC3. So overall welfare of the society improves when the movement is from T to S, but when movement is from T to U, then overall welfare is not improved. But when you move from S to B, B star, that is the point where the slope of this utility possibility frontier of Q and P is tangent to the social welfare curve at B. So maximum welfare of the society is achieved at this point. So you can clearly assume that market mechanisms lead to economy to S. So you can interpret it in different manner. So one is redistribution policy and other is the market policy. So you can understand it. Suppose market allocation or market mechanism help to move from T to S. Then the welfare is improved. This is due to efficient allocation of resources in the economy, leading to the overall welfare from T to S. But there may be possibility that this Q person is rich and P person is poor. It means that market is providing more benefits, more welfare to the rich person and not providing benefit to the poor person. So in that case, the policy becomes very important, and through policy interventions, if redistribution policy is made and progressive taxation or subsidy are given, then movement will be from S to B 0. So in that case, not only overall welfare of the society is improved, but it becomes more equitous because now there is a trade-off. Some trade-off between the two, that benefit of Q is reduced and benefit of this P is increased. But at the same times, overall societal benefit is improved. So B is a better combination which lead to maximum social welfare. But this also indicate that efficiency and equity can be achieved simultaneously by not directly intervening the market but through progressive taxation or redistribution policies. Key mechanisms to ensure equity and efficiency. First is cost benefit analysis. Cost benefit analysis is generally done at two levels, ex ante and ex post. Cost benefit analysis is done before the commissioning any project or policies to know how the policy is going to affect it in terms of cost and benefit, and cost and benefit may spread over a longer period, so discount rate is also taken into consideration. This topic will be discussed in detail in some other lecture, but here we can understand that cost benefit analysis at the two level is to be done to ensure equity and efficiency. For example, when we have a development projects, so we have to calculate how much will be cost and benefit analysis, how the welfare is aggregated, how much weight is given to the poor people while estimating the total benefits. All these aspects are very important to understand how a particular development policy is going to gain overall member of the societies and how the different groups within the society are gainers or losers and how to compensate losers when they lose due to development activities through direct compensation or some other measures may be adopted so that there should be a win-win situation among both gainer and losers and overall welfare of the society is improved. Then cost benefit analysis have some merits, strength, but one important aspect which generally is lacking again is equity. So how to ensure equity in the cost benefit analysis is equally important. So traditional cost benefit analysis actually is based on economic rationality. It uses the private marketplaces as a point of departure in describing public programs. Contemporary cost benefit analysis can be used to measure redistribution benefit of any development projects, but both cost and benefit are measured in a common unit of value. So it becomes very difficult to get aggregated the cost and benefit which spread among peoples. There may be multiple gains, multiple benefits, multiple losses, and losses and gains also spread not only horizontally, vertically, but also there may be intergenerational spread of cost and benefits. So all these aspects are taken into consideration while assessing the impact of public policy in terms of cost and benefit. Initially, the ex ante cost benefit analysis is done to know whether the project will be economically viable, and it depends upon the skill of the policy maker how to accurately make provision of cost and benefit to prove that project is economically and socially viable. So social cost benefit analysis is done, but after implementation of the policy, again cost benefit analysis is done to know up to what extent the policy has been effective in achieving the intended policy goals. So first way is conducting the cost benefit analysis to ensure equity. Then second is market intervention to correct market failures. Governments intervene through taxes, subsidies, regulations, and price controls to address market failures arising from externalities, public goods, imperfect information, and monopolies. So market interventions are equally important to correct the market failures. As I discussed earlier, there may be three key reasons for market failures. One is externality, second is asymmetric information, and third is imperfection of the market or market distortion may occur because of all the three things. So these interventions can be helpful to correct the market work efficiently. So main concern is how to create enabling condition in the market so that market may work efficiently, and here the regulation becomes very important to correct the market failures. So government intervention becomes very important. Then progressive taxation and redistribution policies are equally important to bring equity in the distribution of benefits from the public policy. A progressive taxation imposes at lower rate on lower income earners, and higher income earner get higher taxes. So progressive taxation means as the household income increases, tax rate will increase. Redistribution scheme includes direct cash transfer to the poor people, and introducing welfare schemes, employment schemes, free food grants to the poor people, and free health, better education, midday meal scheme. So all welfare schemes help to redistribute the benefits or redistribution of income and wealth in the society. Social security provisions, all these are the measures adopted by the governments to reduce the inequality in the society. So inequalities can be reduced by not only through taxation but also public investments made in such a manner that maximum benefit of public expenditure goes to those who are not able to get the benefit of the market in a normal market mechanism. Let me sum up this topic. In this topic, we discuss about equity efficiency trade-off. Equity promotes fairness and inclusion. Efficiency maximize welfare and resource use. Policy that increase equity may reduce incentives, while efficiency focused policy may increase inequality. So, therefore, a proper balancing is required if the focus of the policy is to improve the efficiency. No doubt, efficiency is equally important because resources are limited, and to make the optimum use of available competing resources, focus must be on efficiency. And different governments, including Indian government, is focusing on improving the efficiency in the delivery of public services. Now, minimum human interventions and information technology and digitalization, all are the measures adopted by the governments to make the effective delivery of public services to the masses, and that will improve the efficiency in the outcome. But at the same times, if equity is equally important, and equity depends upon the redistribution of wealth and developing the taxation system and public expenditure in such a manner that maximum benefit goes to those who are lagging behind in the development process. And it also make economic sense to do this, because when poor people's income increases, they will spend more on education, health, and that will lead to higher skill of the workers, better health, and consequently they will contribute more to the economic development, and that will broad base the economy, and potential of tax collection of the government will also increase, and further it will create a vicious cycle in the economy, because when government is getting more tax revenue or non-tax revenue, that can be spent further for ensuring the economic efficiency through having better economic policy, but at the same times also ensuring equity by designing better social policies. We also discuss progressive taxation, redistribution, social welfare program, public budgeting and expenditure management, market regulation, taxes and subsidies, and at the end we also discuss about the policy goals to achieve a balance between fair distribution of benefits, that is the meaning of equity, and optimum use of resources, that is the meaning of efficiency, to enhance the overall social welfare. And here effectiveness also becomes very important, and that depend upon the skill of policy makers, how to design the policies which not only ensure equity, not only ensure efficiency, but the outcome of the policy should be as per the intended policy goal. With this, thank you very much.